proud to represent Carl in that paint scheme, and certainly got to know him as teammates. You don't appreciate people until they're gone. Carl was so raw talented. I mean, listen, when we had Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards as teammates, I mean, I was murderer's row. And every week it was like, who's going to carry the torch this week?
The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media.
Hey guys, welcome to Actions Detrimental. After Darlington and 2 in the row, back to back for the 11. Let's go. Man, I didn't bring the flag down here.
Or the trophy.
Well, the trophy stays at JGR for a couple days.
Oh.
It allows all the employees to take pictures with it and whatnot before I snatch it up.
Travis would be disappointed. He likes having a centerpiece when you
It's
win.
a great trophy too. I mean, I didn't see it before the race, but it was, just this very wood and gold.
It's like a mini Southern 500 trophy, right?
Somewhat.
Kinda?
They said the track president there said that it was basically a sort of a replica of the very first Southern 500. The only part that's different is like the gold cup top. But man, I am such a fan of old school wood and silver or wood and gold. It's just the combination as a trophy is just fantastic.
Do you, for the most part, know what the trophies, I mean, obviously for the iconic races, but for the most part, know what the trophy's going to be or look like at the end of these races? Because like this one's changed a little bit throughout the years.
They have it, they usually have it at the driver's meeting kind of sitting front and center there. It just kind of depends on the track. But like Martinsville, you don't actually get a trophy. Like there was no trophy at Martinsville.
You just get the clock.
You just get the clock. And then hopefully whoever goes in your house knows that that's a trophy. And not that you inherited it from your great-grandmother.
Right. So someone comes in and tours your home and you're like, here's all my NASCAR trophies. I've got 50 of these. But then there's also like 6 clocks throughout the house that they're also trophies.
Yeah,
just so you know.
And I've had to spread them out quite a bit. I got, probably, I don't know, maybe 15% of trophies at my office now at 2311. And I've got, probably 30, 40% somewhere in that range, kind of near the bowling alley. And then I got some over by the basketball court. So it's spread out. And then I got some stuff that's in the garage, right? So in like the clocks, they're spread out all over the place. Different people have them. But yeah, it was really cool to see that in Victory Lane. I loved it. It was fantastic, and certainly with 3 laps to go, unexpected.
Yeah. Did you feel like you stole one back?
Yes, absolutely.
They all come back around.
I deserve it. I deserve. They don't all come back. That's for sure. But 2019 to 2021, Jared, you lived it. The pit crew, we had so many issues and dominated races and just couldn't close it out and had issues on pit road a lot of the time. And it certainly feels good to get one back for sure.
Yeah, this is just, I guess, a group that has meshed together well and they're just talented on their own, right?
Yep. Yeah, they're just uber talented, and as things get closer and closer on the racetrack with the cars and the drivers and everything, it just, the small details is what makes the difference between winning and finishing second.
And it's got to be cool for those guys because they were the talk all last week because Bozy was here, sat right where I am, and went on and on about how good your pit crew was. And Joel was the talk of the town. And then sure enough,
they had their moment
race.
For sure. And what was great about it is Chris Gale talked about when that caution came out, how excited they were that like, yes, we get a chance, and so there's certain people that love the light and love the bright lights, and that group really shines when it seems like it really matters the most. And just I can't remember, was it last year at Richmond or was it 2 years ago where they got me off pit road first?
I don't remember.
I think it was I think we won Richmond last year the same way, where we came in third, out first. And so same group. I think we had one injury in the off season with AJ. And so we have a new guy in there, and he's doing fantastic, and just really the whole group. I mean, I can just tell. Like, it takes about 3 seconds of the pit stop going on for me to tell that, this is going to be a heater.
But I asked you yesterday after the race, I said, were you surprised that these guys got you off pit road? Like, when you came on pit road, were you expecting that, hey, I think I have a chance to come off here first and then steal this race?
Yeah, I mean, I had seen that the 12 was having issues on pit road throughout the day. I mean, I thought that truthfully he had the best car. It's hard to say considering only one led, very few compared to the 24. But I think the 24 leading all that whole race, it wasn't fake news, but it was like, just put them behind someone. Let's see what happens, right? And it just, you could just see that the 12 was really able to make passes that others, couldn't. And so I thought he had the best car, and he never had the track position because it seemed like he would lose spots on pit road, and certainly that was a hindrance for that team, and was ultimately kind of a deciding factor there.
Bozy tweeted that the difference on the tire change in the last stop between your crew and Byron's crew was just 0.15 seconds.
I came in ahead of him.
So, right. So, but he also has the first pit stall.
Correct. There you go.
I was just going to ask you if you how does that net out?
Yeah.
What's a bigger advantage?
So usually the number one pit stall, let's try to make it pretty easy for the listeners here. The number one pit stall, generally speaking, is worth, let's say, between 0.3 and 0.5 of a second. Just, it depends on how close the pit out camera is to the number one pit stall. Now, NASCAR has tried to, and they did it at Phoenix here recently over the last year or so, because the number one pit stall had such an advantage. They said, okay, we're not going to make it to where whoever qualifies on the pole has that big of an advantage. So they moved the pit outline to 100 feet away or whatever it might be. So at Darlington, it's still pretty close to the number one stall, but it's not right there on the exit of it.
Is it that yellow line?
Yeah, it should be yellow line. Yeah, it should be the yellow line. So I would say at Darlington, maybe it's 0.3 of time altogether, and that's if he gets out of his pit box just right, it'll be about 0.3 quicker. So the reason it's quicker, because we're all traveling the same distance on pit road, if you think about it, is that he's able to accelerate out and be at pit exit before he even gets up to speed. So he's running less rolling time on pit lane, if that makes any sense, versus cars that are back of that camera.
So you just get like a heads.
It's 0.3. Does that usually get you a spot? Not usually, but it's close. I mean, it's almost a spot, I would say. Usually 1 second at a time. I don't know. It's usually about 2.5 spots. So yeah, it might be 1 spot or so worth of time. But again, he wasn't controlling the race at that point. We had just us in the 12 had just passed him. It took him a while to get around the 20. And so we, the race off, it was going to be tough for Byron to come out with the lead coming in fourth. I think there was just too much space there.
Are all spots on pit road besides that number one pit box created equal for the most part?
No, they're not. But it would be hard for me not to give away trade secrets if I went into it deeper. But no, they're not all equal. There's definitely a lot of things that teams look at when they're choosing their pit stall. Obviously, the first ones to go usually after qualifying, you pick an order of where you qualified. So the first ones usually to go is ones with opening outs, because you think as a race team, well, I'm going to control my opening in because I'm going to outrun everyone. So I'll have an opening in and out, where you never want to get boxed in to where you're running really great, but you got a car pulling in behind you and then boxing you in. And actually, I boxed in Ross one of those pit stops because I didn't go deep enough in my stall. I think you probably heard on the radio, I was like, what can I do not to box the one in there? And he's like, we had the sign at the normal spot, probably should have went a little deeper.
Yeah, Tyler Reddick's time on pit road during that last stop came in second, was 33.394 seconds. So again, only...
Is this total time or driver time?
I don't know. What's the difference?
Well, total time is yellow line to yellow line, so that on pit entry, you start the stopwatch, and when you leave pit lane, you stop the stopwatch. That is total time on pit lane. Now that it gets broken up into what my job is, and that is to roll as good as I can roll, exit the pit stall as good as I can. I have a responsibility to the total pit time as well. So it's not just about, if the total pit time, let's just make it up, is 40 seconds at Darlington, the pit crew is responsible for 8.5 of that. You know what I mean? I'm responsible for the other part of it, and I can't leave anything on the table, especially coming in third. I have to make sure that I don't leave anything on the table because it's going to be hard for my pit crew alone to make up 2 spots. They can do it, but it's going to have to be, you're going to have almost the perfect storm of they knock it out of the park, and then maybe whoever came in the leader has a subpar pit stop. Then you got a chance.
I mean, under a caution flag pit stop like this, how can you actually beat another driver on you getting in and out, right? Because you're bumper to bumper entering pit road. So the guy up front just setting the pace,
Yeah, they are typically. But then there's certain parts of pit road where you feel like you can cheat the area better more than others, and how aggressive do you want to be? So and it's also about angles, right? It's how much distance are you cutting off while you're driving on pit road. So all those things really do play a factor, and it's to the equation that it's more than just the pit stop. But when you can have guys that knock out an 8.3 at the end, they deserve all the praise.
I guess before this pit stop, you were just resigned to a second or third place finish. Blaney was better.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, he definitely was better. We pitted the same lap. He was behind me for probably 20 laps of that run, or so, maybe 25. And then in the long run, he just was superior to what I was. So he got around me, passed those other guys with ease, and looked like he was setting sail for a win there. But we were resigned to third. I thought that was still out kicking the coverage of what we had for a race car. I thought we still didn't have the speed that I was necessarily looking for at that track. Didn't have the handling we needed. But it's good to win these that you feel like you're off and still are able to stay in the game.
How much math goes into strategy decisions at this track? Especially for Blaney, because it always just feels like the cars who run long and then have the fresher tires at the end always catch the leader with 2 or 3 to go.
Yeah, it's a risk though, and we talked about this a few weeks ago. Is that by the numbers, yes, it is better, but you expose yourself for such a long part of that run, because if a caution falls at all before the end of the race, you didn't have all the time that you needed to get back to your original position.
Right.
So, that's the negative part of it. And if you look at the 45, I guess they took the opposite strategy, right? Is that, screw it, I'm going to pit early. And what that strategy does, it puts you out in the lead, and it puts you in the lead for a long time. So any caution that comes out, we're all pitting again. Boom, he pits from the lead. He's got a great shot of finishing this thing off. So it's everyone plays the strategy to what they think they need to contend for the win, and that's different for everyone based off of your car speed.
Right, you're picking a strategy that's going to net you the win if it goes right.
If it goes as you were predicting, maybe the 45 team was predicting there'd be a caution before the end, and so they're like, okay, let's just pit short, get the lead, and when the caution comes, those guys that went long are going to be further back They're not going to, they're going to be 4th, 5th, 6th, wherever they're going to be. We just jump them, and now it's our race to lose.
Are they thinking about that, though, or are they picking a strategy that gets them in front of the 24 at the time?
It could be both. It definitely could be both. I mean, you certainly, if you pit early, there's a couple things there. Yes, you're looking to jump in front of the cars in front of you to then control the race. You're able to set the pace. You're putting the leader in dirty air or whoever you just passed. But beyond that, it's just the distance that you gain in that short amount of time that it takes us in the 12 just takes the entire run to get it all back. And so, it worked out well for us at, if you look at Homestead and now here, but it worked out well because the caution didn't come out. If the caution comes out, that strategy was going to be bad. It would have knocked me and the 12 out of the race. So, right. You're really crossing your fingers hoping that no caution comes.
Are teams like yourself and Blaney's team who are deploying this long run strategy, are you looking at the time saying, okay, we're X amount of seconds back right now. If we come out now and we have 50 laps to go, on average, we're going to run 0.5 seconds faster. And then on lap 5, if everything goes right, we will then pass the leader.
Yeah. They have math that goes into it that would show theoretically when the paths would cross. But again, I mean, it's really hard to predict where the traffic is going to be, and is there going to be a 2-wide battle in front of you for a few laps, and do you get through the traffic as clean as what you were expecting? All those things play a huge factor in it, which is why you're still kind of putting your finger in there, kind of fudging it, trying to guess on what's the right way to do it. But they kind of go off of, okay, here's what we think we're going to do. Here's where we think we're going to gain. Here's where we'll lose. And we think that the reward is kind of worth it. The risk is worth it.
Before this green flag pit cycle, William Byron had a multi-second lead on Tyler Reddick. And then we saw once they all netted out that Byron wasn't able to get around Bell to even get close to Reddick. How does that team lose that multi-second advantage just with the discrepancy of a few laps of pit stops?
Yeah, so what happens is the tire fall off from where you, before Byron pit, he was probably running, let's just say 32 second lap times, okay? When Christopher Bell, who is, maybe a couple seconds, what was he, probably 4 seconds behind?
Yeah.
I don't know, I told him he had to get off the pot because he was holding me up at that point. I was like, come on, you got to move.
Yeah.
Like, you're holding both of us up here.
Gail says, what do you need out of the car? I need the 20 to get off the pot.
Exactly. That's what I said. So at that time, all he has to do is pit 2 laps before the 24 and it jumps him in front of him. So if let's say he's 4.5 seconds back, the gain of new tires is going to be 2 seconds plus. So at that time, the crew chief of the 20's thinking, okay, if I'm going to pit him a little earlier than the 24, hopefully it's 2 laps earlier than the 24 chooses to pit. That way, I'm going to be in front of him, and then hopefully Christopher can do a good job of holding him off until the tires sort of equalize, which he did. And Darlington is one of those tracks that is just you can't hide. And I heard a lot of the media members talk about, man, it's just there was not much passing and whatnot. And yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher because the cars are just so equal. And we can only work in this little box of this Lego car that we have to put together, right? And you can only put it together so many ways, and eventually people figure out the correct way to put it together, and then everyone runs close to the same time. And then it comes down to pit crew, strategy, driver. Driver's still the biggest factor in your position. There's no question about that. But all those things is what combined, put together, equals your result on any given Sunday. But it's it's the strategy. It kind of the 20 probably was reacting to trying to not get jumped by the 45 because he was extra early, and so everyone's reacting to everyone. to, hey, I don't want to get overtaken here. But then you have the 11 and the 12 there that we said, okay, we don't care where we come out. We're not trying to defend. We know we're going to go backwards for a little while. We're just banking on this thing going green the whole way, and then by the math, it should be faster in the end.
So if you're the leader,
but I would have never got to the 45. So think about this: me and the 12 came together. We were close together when we pitted. The 12 was good enough to get there. I would have never got to the 45. So the 45 strategy, you can't say this 45 strategy was wrong because he gained positions, right? He was 4th or 5th or something when he decided to pit on that last sequence. Because I was 3rd. And so he jumped in front of everyone and was looking like he was going to win the race until the very end.
So if you're the leader, you're not necessarily picking your own strategy.
Yeah, that's the tough spot that the 24 car is in, is that he has to react. Now, he doesn't have to, but he's going to lose control of the race if he doesn't react to what other teams are doing, because he's been in control of the entire race. He doesn't want to lose that control. And especially, it looked like at the end of stage 2 when he caught the back of the pack, he had a really difficult time passing them, passing the lap cars, which me and Joey at that time caught him pretty quick. So he's trying to do everything he can not to lose the lead. And so he has to react to those that have already pitted.
So that's where the 24 ultimately lost this
Yeah,
race.
it was probably one lap too late. But I mean, at that time they're probably thinking, hey, if with a couple lap fresher tires, I should be able to overtake these guys easier. But he just wasn't in traffic that much all day.
Yeah, I saw track position was key in this race. And honestly, it wasn't what we typically see out of Darlington. I feel like we usually go to Darlington, you're always prepped for one of the best races of the season, and this ultimately wasn't that.
Yeah, and it's just we're going to see this at all the tracks, because again, we're now into our 22. So this is our 4th year with Next Gen, right? It's again, the field is just getting closer, because there's no tricks or gadgets that we can, have on our race cars really anymore, right? And so people have figured out how to set them up, and I mean, all the small things that the crew chief used to be able to do, you can't really do anymore. So it just migrates us all to the same. And again, we as drivers, we can see what each other are doing. So that makes us the same. And this is just going to be something that we fight going forward. And it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better, because the field's going to continue to just get tighter and tighter. Yeah,
but I'm looking at Jeff Gluck's was a good race poll. In both 2024 Darlingtons were above 90%. It's like, how can you get that much of a change in teams getting closer and using that as the reasoning for the race that we saw yesterday when it's only been 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I try to. It's tough to say why, because I mean, was it spring or fall? No, spring. Had the whole, the Busher and Reddick got into each other. Kozlowski wins. It was that was a exciting moment. And then I don't remember what happened in the fall, but I don't know. Darlington, we still had a change of the lead with 3 or 4 to go. Like, we didn't have 4 lead changes all day long. And that was one of them, and it was with 3 or 4 to go. So I don't know what we really expect. I mean, that's about as good as it's going to get at Darlington. It's not going to be like the Xfinity car where, the main difference, and I'm regurgitating facts, but we have a lot of new listeners that tune in each week, is like the difference in Xfinity and Cup is that the leader in Cup has the advantage. He has the clean air. He can dictate where he places the dirty air on the car behind him. In Xfinity, the second place car can manipulate the first place car. All he has to do is drive up right to the rear bumper, and it takes all the air off that Xfinity car. And next thing you know, the leader is slipping and sliding around, which is why we've seen some incredible Xfinity races there over the years, because the second place car is in control, not the first place car. And that's the difference in Cup racing versus Xfinity.
How did you feel once you lost track position earlier in the race?
Horrible. It was bad. I went from, I only ran the first 3 laps, obviously in the top 4 there. But we made the decision to pit. We thought that others, most of the field was going to pit. We didn't want to be one of the last cars that didn't pit with having new tires right behind us. It was just going to be a bad equation for us. So we pitted. We went back to like 20th, and it was not good back there. Not good at all. I think we were able to claw our way somewhere near the top 10. But even with fresher tires, it was a bear.
Yeah. Is it possible that just the 24 car was better than everyone for the start of this race? That
I think
he leads the laps and there's action going on, behind him, but because he's leading, it makes it seem like it's status
maybe.
quo.
Yeah, that probably was some of it. I do the fans love seeing one person lead the first 3/4 of the race? Probably not. And so, and I think that they'll take a sentiment and they'll run with it as well. And so, to me it was better than a 50-50 because you had a lead change with Reddick and Blaney there inside 3 to go or 4 to go. So that's you got to set your expectations for each track. It's and understand that this is one of those 1.5 mile tracks on NASCAR circuit where we can't get away from each other. That the track is too narrow. And I've said this since the beginning of Next Gen. Next Gen will race great where you have multiple lanes, where cars can completely escape the air of the car in front of them. And the narrower the track, the worse it's going to be.
Hey, this is Dale Jr., and for the latest Actions Detrimental gear, go to shop.dirtymomedia.com. We've got plenty of options for you. We're adding new stuff all the time. That's shop.dirtymomedia.com.
Does it take away also the difference in driver skill here? Because would you agree at Darlington, there's more of a difference in your skill and the guy who's the least good at running Darlington?
Yeah, I think that's closed up over time. But yeah, I think the driver can make a bigger difference. And I mentioned it in the media center that this race was very similar to Martinsville in the sense of the tires fell off, and they fell off a very good amount, but they were really about to fall off. But that's when people pit or when a caution would come out. So we never really got to that place where there was vast disparity between all the cars' speed. And so the runs just aren't long enough for that to happen, or the tires last a little bit too long for that to happen. So it's just a tough equation, and you're not going to beat physics.
Kyle Larson spins out on lap 4. He then goes to the garage. They work on his car for 160 laps or so. Comes back out, and then ultimately is the one who brings out the final caution, which affects the outcome of this race. So the new DVP policy affected the outcome of the race.
It did, yeah. It won't be the last either. Certainly, as long as guys are able to kind of repair wrecked race cars. Now, it wasn't the case in the Larson incident, but in the future, what will happen is you'll go to repair something, and something will fall off, and it'll cause a caution. And is that the game-changing caution of the race or not? You got to give the 5 team credit. They worked really, really hard to get that car back on the racetrack, and for multiple reasons. One is that they wanted probably to work on, we need to analyze our car. We got to come back here for the Southern 500, and we didn't get enough laps to even realize, is our car good or not? And so, they probably went through a bunch of changes. They probably had an opportunity there to go through reps of fixing the car. So there was a lot of benefit beyond just points for the 5 car to be out there.
Yeah, well, how much can you learn if your car's not up to competitive speed?
I don't know. And I haven't even looked at lap times to see, was he running competitive times or not? My guess is he probably was. The car, it looked like they did a good job repairing it. It looked like it didn't hit a lot of, there wasn't a lot of wheel contact, so suspension damage. It was more cosmetic stuff. But we all know how sensitive kind of the underbodies of these cars are and the front of the cars are. So was this car optimum for the day? No, definitely not. But any kind of information that they can squeeze out of that last 100 laps or whatever they got to run is beneficial for them.
Did you send them a thank you text message or anything?
I thanked them in front of the whole crowd. They didn't seem to like that.
No. Did you hear from Carl Edwards at all after this?
I did. He mentioned actually before the race that he's like, don't go winning this race. I don't have to do any backflips. And so, it was super proud to represent Carl in that paint scheme, and certainly, got to know him as teammates, and certainly, really a role model off the racetrack, and listening kind of his life experience. If you haven't checked out his interview on the Dale Jr. download, it's absolutely fantastic. Just kind of on his whole perspective of this thing and why he chose to step away. And I, for the longest time, was a big conspiracy theorist on why he left. I mean, I was certain that he was going back to Ford. I mean, that's what I felt was happening, is that he just left to then sit out for a year. That way his contract expired, and then boom, he's going to go back to Ford. But he had other things in mind, and it's a great story to hear. And he certainly was not pleased with the end of that last race that he was in, and kind of how that all went down. And so he made the best choice for himself, his physical health, and his family, and it's really to be admired.
On that Dale Jr. download episode, he said that you were the one driver that he wished he could have connected with a little better in his driving career.
Yeah. We've had some communication after he has retired, and I certainly, you don't appreciate people until they're gone, and that's typically the way it works in the sport, right? Is that Jimmy's kind of still here, but like when he really truly hangs it up and stops, and like we're really 10 years from now, 15 years from now are going to be in awe of like what this guy accomplished, right? And I think it's the same with Carl. It's just Carl was so raw talented. I mean, he was able to drive cars that I wasn't able to drive, or Kyle Busch wasn't able to drive. Like he was always kind of on an island with his car setups and the things that he liked, and he could make that work. And it was amazing to see. And you just didn't, when you're in the moment and you're in the time, you just don't appreciate it like you do in retrospect years later down the road.
It's because you guys just too competitive with each other in the moment.
That's part of it too, right? Is that, again, I've said many times, rarely do I root for a teammate to win, and much less, when we had Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards as teammates, I mean, I was murderer's row, and every week it was like, who's going to carry the torch this week, and it was tough competition.
Yeah, you guys are good, and you're racing me, and I don't want to get too close to you.
That's right.
I know you already asked about it this weekend in the media center, but what is your take on Throwback weekend?
I mean, I hear both sides of the argument. I think it is becoming, it's tough to keep the enthusiasm with it, and I think it has lost enthusiasm. I hear the other arguments that, hey, it's not really necessarily always, it's not about the paint schemes, even though that's typically what this was founded on, was, hey, we're going to have a retro paint scheme. But again, the world has changed, and we don't have sponsors in our sport now that are on these cars for 20 some races. And I think the Teardown did a good job of pinpointing this. When you got sponsors on the car for 3-4 races, they're not going to give up one of their races to change their logo, change their colors, change their brand. Like you're not giving them value doing that. And so when it's a sponsor driven sport, sponsors are going to drive what you see. And so that's the model that we've got, and we've got to, we just have to accept it.
Have you ever been in those conversations with sponsors, whether as an owner, as a driver, where they're like,
I haven't. No, I haven't personally. I've been with Sport Clips on Throwback weekend for a long, long time now. And they've always kind of, here's what we're thinking. Is there a certain paint scheme you have in mind? And so I'll help them with that process. And then like this year, they're like, okay, we're thinking of Carl Edwards Throwback. What do you think of these options? And I was like, okay, I like this one. And so that's kind of how this one worked. And I thought it was great.
Yeah. I mean, Sport Clips always gets their money back, or money's worth in this race with you.
And it makes great sense for them because primarily we've run, red, black, and white cars, which that doesn't change. That doesn't need to change. It doesn't change for them their look, right? Their logo stays the same. We're just, they're just throwing it on a different background.
Yeah, and I was asking some of the JGR team members about how they throw it back to Carl Edwards, and then Carl's there. Like they get value out of that too because Carl had a relationship with Sport Clips, so it's like an all-encompassing event for them. We were one of the unique, teams that was able to kind of piece it together where it all made sense and it worked. But that's really, really hard to do. Anything else on Darlington in your mind that stuck out?
Not really. I was really surprised to not see a caution. Was that Keselowski that had spun?
He did. And then the debris that came off of his car, because he got it back together and was making his way to pit road, but the wheel hub or whatever that came off the car.
The nut came off?
Yeah, is what.
And that was the debris, I'm guessing?
That was the debris.
Okay. Because that was right in the middle of a pit sequence, which that's essentially what flipped the field upside down, right? It went from where I was running in the teens to now I'm in the top 5. I was surprised they didn't throw the caution when he spun out. Usually a spin out it's always been a caution at Darlington. But I understand this. The sensitivity of it is that NASCAR was trying not to get involved in throwing an ill-timed caution that was going to turn the field upside down, but they couldn't ignore the lug nut that was on the track, I guess. I mean, if you run over that, it's not only is it going to damage someone's car, I mean, that thing could get kicked up anywhere.
Yeah, that's what it seemed watching the replay. You watch the race back, it seems like they're giving Brad a chance to, catch it. And if he does, then we don't have to throw this caution and don't have to completely mess up the field during this pit cycle, which, I mean, he did hang on to it.
Yeah. Yeah, he did, and limped it around for a while. But again, if there's debris on the track, they can't really ignore that. And they didn't. So Josh Berry, I thought he was really strong. He spun off of turn 2. Back to the Larson thing. There's a big bump. I don't know if that was directly the reason Larson spun early in the race, but we fought it all weekend. There was actually on National NASCAR Social from practice where when I hit the bump, I mean, it really sent my car way up in the air. That bump has gotten more and more aggressive over time. I don't know if it's Kyle Busch. I talked to him before the race. He thinks that it's the new pavement in turn 2 sinking, and then the straightaway is staying level, so it's creating this big ramp off of turn 2. I don't know if they can trim that down a little bit. That would be great if they did, but it's I don't know if that's what Larson hit or he just got loose, but it looked like he was running pretty low. So, the lower you are, typically the less that bump is a factor. So I'm not really sure. But then I don't know with Josh Berry, did he have contact or did he just lose it? We got the replay here. Oh, him and the 45 got together.
Yeah, 45 not clear.
Yeah, and it said I saw where Reddick said I thought he was giving me the spot. So let me try to get you in the driver's minds here. What we typically have a decision to make in the middle of 1 and 2. When you get somebody beside you, you have a decision to make. And I had to make a tough one a couple times. There were guys on the inside of me, and I'm like, this is a terrible place for me to lift. It's not that I'm not giving you the position, but if I lift here, then I'm going to have a terrible run off of turn 2, and then someone else is going to get by me. I think Chase Elliott was one of them where it was like he kept getting to the inside of me, but it was like the worst time, and I had a bunch of cars right behind him that were I couldn't really just flat out give them the spot, or else I was going to lose 3 spots. So I had to fight to keep them back there. And actually the caution came out and I ended up staying in front of them. But so when you go through turns 1 and 2, there's so much speed off of turn 2 that you can make a decision if you're the outside guy or the inside. Either if you're passing on the inside, typically you're keeping the gas down, and you're hoping the person on the outside just checks up and gives you the space, because you need all the room that you can get off of turn 2. You got to use all that room. But if the person on the outside doesn't want to really give you the spot and needs to stay side by side with you, like I had to do with Chase, what that does is it makes it a very tight moment off of turn 2 where, man, everyone has to hold a steady wheel, or else they're going to get into each other, or the top person's going to get squeezed in the wall. And it looked like here that from Tyler Reddick's comment saying that I thought he was giving me the spot, I think what he assumed is that 21 was backing out, and the 21 wasn't backing out. He was giving him the spot, but he wasn't giving him all clear.
Why would you ever give the guy on the inside the spot? He's trying to pass you. If he doesn't complete the pass, why should you?
Yeah, because at Darlington is one of those tracks where you need to race lap time and not your competitors. And if the 45 is passing him, say he's got newer tires, you're just holding yourself up by holding him up. Him running right on your rear bumper through the corners and side drafting you down the straightaways, that is slowing you down. You're just trying to run the best lap time you can all the time. And so there's instances where it makes sense to give up a spot to run a faster speed.
So you're worried about hanging on to your tires then, I'm guessing, because the more consistent your lap time is. Interesting.
Yep.
Seems like the guy on the inside's getting greedy, trying to pass the guy on the outside. If they don't get it, then they should be the one to let up.
Darlington has been a give and take racetrack for decades and decades, and it's a lot less give than what it used to be back in the day. Of course, when you had fast cars and slow cars, like people would give up the spot much easier than what they do now, knowing that how big track position is. But it's always been that way. It has always been a track where you've got to just race lap time, and not get yourself in trouble. And racing side by side off of turn 2 is a recipe for trouble.
I want to go back to that bump. 30, however many cars are in the field, went over that bump 300 plus times, and only one car got loose and wrecked off it. Why? What's the difference between that one time that Kyle went over it and everyone else who goes over it?
I mentioned Kyle was pretty low, so I don't know that the bump really did it to him, but let's pretend that it did. What happens is then it will bottom out the back of the car, and it essentially knocks the back of the car off the racetrack. Well, when you take the rear tires off the racetrack, or maybe you hit the bump stops too hard in the back, it just the rate that the tires get at that moment of hitting that, it's uncontrollable. And I mean, it was a handful really for a lot of guys. I saw it all during the race, all during practice. I mean, I had it as well. It's tough.
Are you prepping for that?
It's part of the equation. It certainly is part of the equation of how you want to set up your car, and that's something that we do each and every week. We're balancing ride quality versus getting the car as in an optimum aerodynamic position.
But like when you're driving down the highway and you see a bump coming up, and you're just like maybe paid a little more attention than you were the previous 5 seconds. I do.
I mean, I bet you I had a lot of lifting moments right before that bump. Just I'm trying not to, because I know my rear wheels are about to come off the ground. I'm trying not to, vroom, and then when it lands, then I just get all out of sorts. So I'm just trying to sell the car down as much as I can.
Bristol next weekend. Can you go 3 in a row?
Hey, I was listening to that clip. Is anyone else on this podcast, maybe mention in the comments, is Fox's audio up for anyone else? Like, I notice I have in my living room and in my bus multiple speakers, right? I have a TV, and then I have not really surround sound, but just like speakers, a left and a right. But the audio during our races only comes out of the right speaker. Like, do they have? It's like it's on analog. Analog, yeah, analog radio. I don't know. I've noticed it for a few weeks that they've got something going on with their audio that's just not like all other audio coming through Fox or any other station for that matter. I don't know what's going on.
When's the next broadcast provider kick in? Coke 600 Prime?
Yeah. That's summer stretch. I think it's the 600. That's right.
Okay, so we're really only a handful of weeks out from that at this point.
Yeah, we're month and a half. Yeah. That's right when the babies do.
Yeah.
Yep.
You pick a name yet?
Getting close.
You picked a logo though.
No. No, you got to have a name. Bristol, yeah, I mean, man, I wish we had the same kind of Bristol that we had last spring, but that's not going to happen. That was a interesting tire conservation, a billion lead changes, a billion passes, cars running, 60 miles an hour on the apron and on the racetrack. We're not going to see that, so temper your expectations, folks. I think we're going to see very similar to what we had in the fall. Same tire, nothing's really changed. I think the field's going to be really close. It's going to be track position, and can you qualify well? Can you maneuver? That's one of the big factors at Bristol is can you move around and get your car to run just as fast on the bottom as you can on the top. That's been key there over the years.
Last handful of Bristol races, last 5 here, top 10. So while we might not see what we saw last spring, I assume that we're going to see a very good 11 car.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. We're running pretty good right now. Still have some room to improve. Really, on the mile and a half is what's head scratching to me. Is like Vegas was a weird one where like all the JGR cars. Remember, we were all in the back at Vegas. Remember that? And then at one point at Darlington, we were all in the back there. And it's not like someone just placed us there. Like we raced our way back there. And so, yeah, we got to get a little bit better for sure. But short track stuff's been money for us so far this year.
Well, that's where you're going. So are you not as confident in the team and where they are this season as maybe what it looks like on paper?
I am, because we're still running well, even though like the balance hasn't been right on. Now Martinsville, the balance was like right on. But yeah, I still think while JGR has won 5 of the 8 races, I think we've been the best car or the best team like 2 of those. So, and circumstances came into play, to
right.
get us the other wins. And so I still don't know that we're all just pounding our chest right now saying, we're the best, because there's heavy competition out there that I think are a little faster right in this small moment.
Yeah, I guess so. So what you're saying is being a top 5 car is like the bar for JGR. You guys are trying to be the best car. That's
right. Yeah, I mean, you want to be the one dominating the race, and I just that hasn't happened a ton so far this year. But it's we're all learning, and it's I can only speak for the 11 car, but we're learning each other. We're figuring out what each other like on the racetrack, and I think he's doing a great job with strategy. So it's a process, and we're still early in the season. I've said that you got to get 10 races in, and I guess we're going to run 9 or 10 before the break, right? Or 9. Is it Bristol then off?
Bristol then off, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have 9 then a break. So really after that 9th race, you're probably going to get a good indication of where do you really stack up on all these types of racetracks, and where do we need to improve for the summer?
How do you keep yourself or the team from falling off? You know, the 11 team won 3 races in the first 3 months of last season.
You got to keep wanting it. I mean, you go to work just like you ran 20th. I'm going to do the same things this week than if I struggled, and so it's just continuing to put the work in to getting better. And that's the tail that we keep chasing.
Your spotter, Chris Lambert, went 2 for 2 this weekend. Brandon Jones won the Xfinity race.
That was exciting for him. I heard him on the radio during the broadcast. I was like, oh, Lambert's on the 20 this year. But yeah, that was actually, dare I say, a dominant performance by Brandon Jones. I mean, Christopher Bell was good. He really was. But even still, I thought from the very jump of the race, Brandon Jones stayed right there with him. And when Brandon Jones got out front, I didn't see where there was really a whole lot of competition against him. Now, the others had lost some track position through some other things, but still, great win by Brandon Jones. It's not his first win at Darlington. It seems like this is a track that he's really latched onto. First win for Sam McCauley, his crew chief, who was my race engineer for many, many years on the 11 car. So great for him to get a win with that 20 team. And yeah, a great sweep for JGR.
Yeah, Toyotas were good all weekend, at least when it comes to the results.
Yep.
I got a review here from Richie. Richie says, Denny gives great insight on the sport, and his podcast has earned my respect. 5 stars on the pod, but I'll still give double ones on the track.
Plenty of double ones this past weekend in Darlington. And, I was thinking about it, and I had an interview with Shannon Spake earlier this morning. I was like, I bet Kyle Busch wishes he got all the boosts that he used to get. Yeah. When you think about it, he used to get a lot, but he was winning a lot too. And so it's great. Bring those double ones. I'll keep harassing you as a driver. But appreciate y'all. Remember, you get your Actions Detrimental merch. You can shop at shop.dirtymomedia.com and get your Actions Detrimental merch. I wear my hoodie all the time.
You got anything planned for this week? Anything going on?
Busy week. I guess we're gonna have another celebration somewhere. Got the national championship tonight. Houston, Florida. You got any dog in that fight? Care?
Not really.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have Florida winning it, so I only care for that, but I can't win my bracket with my friends. So it's like, I guess maybe rooting for Houston because you would think they're an underdog school. But they're not an underdog school. It's not like they're not one of the big ones, right?
Right.
And so probably we'll be rooting for Houston just for that reason. All right. Well, we'll see you guys after Bristol. See you next week.